Are the 2024 Mets a team of destiny?
I think that there's been countless of those examples where this team could have easily packed it in and folded it up. The Blue Jay game I mentioned on September 11th, game one on Monday afternoon where the Mets are down 3-0 and they could have easily been like, hey, let's play for game two.
From the selfie, the rally rat. Edwin Diaz gives up a grand slam to Corbin Carroll, and you're like,
how many times have the Mets been done? This team's going to the postseason, baby.
0-5. Hitless through 7. Nobody in the ballpark. Feels like rock bottom. And yet here we are.
Here we are.
Just so you guys know, that's also what we did for the employee watch party. We literally, the second that game ended, John and I hugged each other and had like a long, just strong hug. It's kind of all coming out. I mean, like the game's been over the game one's been over for a little bit now. This is during game two. And I can say the feelings are still all coming out. This is, no matter what happens from this point on, this has been my favorite year that I've watched the Mets.
Yeah, I said something similar, I think, after that Sunday game in Philadelphia, that no matter what happened the rest of the way, this has been an incredible season, one that we would all remember. But there was a part of me that knew that a playoff appearance would cement all that we have all together been through as a season for the ages in Mets history. And little did I know the triumphs that we would have to go over for the Mets to clinch that playoff spot on Monday afternoon.
This year's about exercising demons, dude. I mean, the demons that were exercised today for me, the years I've seen this team crumble to Atlanta, the years that it's not game 162, but let's call it day 162. I know it's not day.
It was, I'll borrow a term from soccer. It was decision day. That's what it was.
I look back at myself. I look back at that kid that left the last game at Shea Stadium heartbroken. I look back at that kid that stood at the gate. I stood at the gate and a security guard had to tell me to leave because I refused to move out of the way because I was so sad. I look back at that kid and I look back at the guy who works for the Mets right now and got to watch that game with all of his coworkers. And the most unique way to ever watch a game the way we did today.
So that kid, I was that same kid. I cried with my dad after Shea closed down, after, the Scott Schoenweiss home run allowed. I, cried in game 162 in 2007. I cried after game 7 in 06. Cried after the World Series ended in 2000. Need I say more? I wasn't awake during 99. But after the Mets relinquished the lead in the bottom of the 8th inning, after taking a 6-3 lead in the top of the 8th inning against the Braves, you're thinking, oh my God, here we go again.
Oh my God.
In the worst of ways possible. You're thinking the worst way. Everyone's thinking the worst, right? And for this team, and part of me, and we'll get into like what we all did during the game when I went upstairs and yada, yada, yada.
Don't even spoil it.
But when that inning ended and SNY is going to break and it's 7-6 Braves on the bug and it's going top 9, no one's thinking, you know what, we got this. But you know what? Because of all the resiliency that we've seen from this team all season long, and that's been the key and that's been the word, and we saw it once again here, for this team to punch back one last time, and first man of the inning, made it out.
Yeah.
And Marte comes up, gets a hit, and here he comes, Francisco Lindor.
And I turned to you after that home run, and I asked a real question, and that's not even the question of this episode, because I think this episode deserves better. You saw the question in this episode. But I turned to John, and I was like, has this team ever had somebody like this? Like the year Francisco Lindor has had. We've had amazing players. We've had David Wright. We've had Mike Piazza. We've had Tom Seaver. But have we ever had somebody like Francisco Lindor that has just this year decided I am putting everything on myself. And if this team is going to go down, it's not because of me.
Well, it's just been the way that he has responded to, tough moments. Like September 11th, the Mets go into the top of the 9th inning, being no hit by the Blue Jays, and he hits that solo home run to give them the lead. And obviously, we all know that he's playing through pain. He was sidelined by the back injury.
That was to tie.
To tie. He has put in so much work and effort to get healthy and right. And we know he's probably still not feeling right, but homers on Sunday, 2 stolen bases on Sunday, and then hits that home.
Sunday, dude, the moment, I think there's so many moments from this Mets season, and we talked about this during the game. And it's tough to do a podcast like this right now because I don't want to keep saying me and John talked about this already, but we just watched this game together.
Basically did the podcast.
We did the podcast, but I want you guys to have insight onto what we're thinking during the game, what we're saying to each other. And I said to John, there's so many moments from this season that are just going to go, in my opinion, are going to go down as iconic Mets moments. And one of those is yesterday, Sunday's game, Francisco Lindor sliding into home and then literally crawling and getting helped up. Because he's been through so much pain, but he gave everything he had. That's going to be a moment in Mets history I always remember. And there's a bunch of those this year.
There's so many. And this team really embodied and for the final time in the regular season at least showed its resolve by you're down 3-0.
The final day in the regular season.
Final day of the regular season. You're down 3-0 against Schwallenbach, who was just shoving, and Tyrone Taylor knocks him out of the game with a double. And so let's get into the behind the scenes, I guess.
So Mets take a 0-3 deficit.
They're down 3-0.
Down 3-0.
Top
and
7.
Things are tough. And this is, like I said, this is the most unique way I've ever watched a game because we watched this game. The Mets, for their employees, put on a watch party in the K corner. And they said, it was hey, anybody who, look, talk to your managers, figure it out. If you're able to go to this watch party, go down and watch it. But the truth is, look, we all work here. These 2 games, your work is affected by this. So, if you're working here, you're most likely going to that watch party because who knows what tomorrow is. So you have a lot of people in the K corner. And I've never watched a game like this at a bar anywhere in my life where every single soul in the bar is rooting for one team.
Everyone's invested. It means literally your next day or days are impacted.
Everybody's working on projects that it's affected by. Everybody, and there's people like John and I who are fans, people like Brendan who are fans, people who are sitting there and hanging on every moment of the Mets game. And it was honestly, it was a beautiful way to watch the game. And I'll tell you this, when Albie scored that first home run, when the Mets took that first 0-2 deficit, I will say I've never, and I turned to John, I said, I've never heard as quiet as a home run as that. Because you're never at a place where there's not a single fan of the other team whatsoever.
Everyone was playing on the same side of the road for sure.
When that home run happened, the entire place went silent.
And then Laureano homers, and it's 3-0. But let's get to the good part.
Okay, so then Mets are down. John at one point has to run upstairs to grab something. I don't even remember what you had to grab.
I was starving, and I brought chili to work today.
Chili. John's known for chili. John is a big chili guy. John runs upstairs to buy his chili. Literally.
To microwave my chili.
Microwave his chili and to grab it. It's not, you didn't bring it down with you.
No.
John goes upstairs to buy his chili, and I'm not exaggerating. The second John hits the doors of the K corner and goes outside of the stadium, Mets start getting men on base.
6 straight hits.
But the second you left, it started.
Oh, I know. So what happened was Tyrone Taylor doubled, knocked Schwallenbach out. At that point, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go get my chili. It's 3-0. Whatever. I had just walked out. Alvarez doubled. I saw a text message from my boy Joe in my group chat. Shout out Joe. Shout out James. Shout out LGGGM. I haven't shouted him out once this year, so I haven't shouted him out.
You should.
And I saw Alvarez double to knock Tyrone Taylor in. So I'm like, all right, I'm going upstairs. I'm not going to run back in there. There's some hits and me not being in the place. I go upstairs. Marte singles, makes it 3-2. I don't know. It's all fuzzy. But I know Iglesias got a hit, ties the game. Vientos, huge plate appearance. The sac fly. He watched some tough sliders from Joe Jimenez, knocks in the go-ahead run with the sac fly.
And you know what? That also wasn't an easy sac fly for Lindor.
Oh, no.
Lindor in third, that was a shallow... Look, that was a sac fly. Mark did everything.
Medium center field.
Medium center field. But, like, shallow enough that, like, I think in any other game, you might not risk it.
Lindor is a great base runner. It's a very underrated part of his game. Whenever he's on base, because also keep in mind, he went first to third on the Iglesias hit, which was massive for him to go first to third. I mean, he read that ball perfectly. Jose Iglesias now a 20-game hitting streak.
What were you doing in Syracuse, Jose?
There's going to be a documentary made about Jose Iglesias.
Well, there's a documentary about Trey Turner coming back from having a bad year, and Jose Iglesias better get a goddamn documentary.
There will be a documentary about the year that Jose Iglesias has had, but Mets take the lead. I was upstairs. At this point, I'm like, I cannot leave.
I texted John, and I said, don't come down.
Don't come down. So I'm with Josh Roseman at that point. And Josh was like, yeah, you got to stay. Jeff Baker
Well,
was
Josh
like,
Roseman also went upstairs because he didn't want to hear you.
He was sick of my statistics. I give it both ways. So it's fine. Nimmo hits the home run. I let out a big yell in a very professional setting.
I yelled out in the bar. So John and I are in two different scenarios for this game. John is upstairs by himself with a few people. I'm downstairs in the bar. Bar's going crazy. Everybody who works for the Mets is going absolutely nuts. And I screamed out loud, I never want to see John Barron again.
Which many people constantly say about me, but that's fine.
Everybody cheered it. Even your boss's boss cheered it and enjoyed it. But then the Braves not only tie it, but take the lead.
Disaster ensues.
And then that same person says,
calls me.
I'm reaching out to John because he's sulking upstairs by himself and he's sad. He's going to come back down, and I want everybody to be nice to John. And I'm not going to lie to the Meet at the Apple listener. I was not going to be nice to John. I had no interest in being nice to John at that point. I was down. This team I love, this team I've invested years into, this team that means everything to me.
We're all thinking, well, game 2. Yeah. I guess that's it.
And John, I'm not lying to you guys. Top of the 9th inning.
Marte singles.
I start feeling good.
So
John Barron walks into the bar.
So it was Alvarez, I think, Marte, and Lindor. I saw Alvarez at bat. I was coming down after Trisha called me. I get out of the elevator. I see there's one out. I'm like, oh. I saw Marte's single while I was still in the lobby. I walk in the bar. Lindor is up. I had just gotten back to the table, the seat that I was sitting at. Lindor is hitting.
We were sitting next to each other at this point.
People are like, oh, yeah, John, you bring good juju.
Well, you walked in as the hit, and everybody was like, oh, yeah, John. Hey, John. John walks in.
I sit down.
We do that. And then Lindor hits what I think, and guys, you can hit the comments. You can reply to us. And we all talked about this. What could be the most important regular season home run in Mets history? Francisco Lindor hits. And everybody in the bar starts chanting MVP for Francisco Lindor, but there's one person in the bar chanting MVP and pointing at John, and it's me.
Look, I think it's a good coincidence, and
of course, look, we're not taking anything from Francisco Lindor, but it was a special moment.
It was crazy, and I think that I said this the last time we recorded because we didn't record after the one game in Atlanta or the Milwaukee series. So this is the first episode we've done since then. I don't say this lightly, and I said this about the ball that hit third base on the Alvarez throw.
I heard. I knew what you were talking about when you said that.
There were some forces out there, whether it's whatever you want to call it, that took that ball and carried it over that fence. That was. It was a special moment that Mets fans are not going to forget anytime soon. And so, look, I say this because I guess I've never really talked about this on the podcast.
Can I say something, dude? And I want you to explain it from your side, but I want you to know, like, I think me and there's only one other person at the bar understood what was happening, me and Brendan. But like, I literally, when the second it happened, I knew exactly. I knew.
So, I grew up a diehard Met fan as you did, and so my dad passed away last October 6th. So we're coming up on the 1 year anniversary, and all day today I was thinking, man, I wish I could text my dad, call my dad, be with my dad, yada yada yada, and obviously life is what it is, and when that ball left the ballpark, and I know there's a lot of people, I'm not the only person who's lost someone who, instilled Mets baseball in them. I know that there's a lot of us out there. But for all of us who have experienced that and gone through that, for that ball to go over the fence, looked off the end of the bat to me. And I know Francisco's a strong guy, but there was something in the air down there at Truist Park that helped that ball over the fence. And, Mets take the lead. And then you need 3 more outs. It's not over at that point. And it was not easy.
No.
It was not easy.
Dude, that ball, I guarantee you, because we're watching on the feed, we're watching the same feed everybody else watched. And, it's hard when you're in a bar like that where you can't hear the call, you can't hear anything. But that ball went up. And the way Francisco looked off the bat.
He thought he got it right off the end.
And I think everybody thought it was just a fly out. And then we're watching the game, and then all of a sudden you're like, things start piling up, and you go, wait, why isn't any of the Atlanta crowd making noise? Wait.
The way that you saw Michael
Harris
just going back to the fence, he was looking up, and that's the point.
Exactly.
Where I was like,
he never turned around. Not once.
Oh my God.
That home run, and I turned to John, and I said, we've had a lot of great players on this team. Has anybody ever done anything like that? And
not in that situation.
I grew up idolizing David Wright. David Wright was my hero. David Wright was everything to me. And I'm not saying, I'm not taking anything away from David Wright. We grew up, Mike Piazza also just legend for us.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where when push came to shove, when that moment came up, I can't remember another Met doing what Francisco Lindor has done this year. I mean, and this is a guy who came to this team and had such a rough start. He had such a rough start where the fan base was not attaching to him. And what we've seen this year is not only Francisco Lindor showing up for the fans, but the fans showing up for Francisco Lindor. And I think there's something really special about that aspect as well. That it's just become this relationship now. It's not anymore he's trying to prove anything to us. We're not trying to, we're in this together. And when they showed that moment after his home run where he was literally looking, before the home run.
It was
before the home run, when he was looking up to the sky and he was saying, "Thank you, God." And he was saying, "Thank you, God." And then the Mets lose the lead. And then when he got up there, I was like, if there's anybody, it's been a long time since we had a guy who comes up and you go, this is who I want up right now.
Look, you're right about, I don't know, you guys tell us, has there been a bigger regular season moment in Mets history? Like the Bucky Dent home run. I know it's not Mets, but that's the kind of legend that this could turn into. And there's plenty of conversation to have. We're going to have a lot of conversation. I think the game is over. We started this during game 2. I think that the Braves have clinched the wild card. So I believe the Mets are locked in with the Brewers. A date with Milwaukee once again. So we'll talk about all that. But as far as regular season and the circumstances go, I don't know a bigger regular season moment than what Francisco Lindor provided the Mets fans. And you consider his injury and the pain he's playing through. And a back is no joke. A back is no joke. I'm not a Major League ball player.
Oh my God, I can't believe you're gonna bring this up.
No, I hurt my back last week, and I can't even walk. I can't even walk. And this guy is going out there hitting a home run in the biggest of. If the Mets lost that game after the 6-3 lead, I was thinking to myself, I don't know how you bounce back from this.
Dude, honestly, I went from thinking, hey, if you lose game 1, you'll probably win game 2, to thinking, if they lose this game, I don't know what happens.
Because of especially the energy being here and there. And I know that
Did you see the probability chart?
Oh, I saw that, and I just saw also the playoff probability chart that the Mets' incredible social media team put out. Guys, this has been, whether you're 20, whether you're 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, doesn't matter. This season, we are all so lucky to have been a part of this and root for this team and this club and Carlos Mendoza and all of his coaches and every single man that has made an impact on this team from, it was March 29th when we opened the season, all the way here through September 30th. This season, the regular season, has been my favorite. And I love the 06 team.
No,
I love the 2015 team.
1,000%.
2016 team was cool. 2000 Mets were awesome. 99 Mets. But think about all of that we have experienced and been through. And for it to end the way it did today, but you know what? We wouldn't have it any other way.
What did you say to me when I said to you, in 2022, I started probably a week after they clinched. And I said, hey, I was like, John, you've been here longer than me. I was like, this day feels different than me. This day feels special to me.
We've never done this.
And then what are the words you said to me about this one? This day. Do you remember? You said, this is my favorite day I've ever had working here. You said, this is the best day I've ever had here.
And it's all because of, I mean, you guys know it. 0-5, 11 games under,
Barely
glove
anybody in the
toss,
ballpark, glove toss,
everything. Like
the selfie.
this, everything. Like,
And we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that because I got to ask the question for the clip. But this has been 2015 was a special year because we went into it not, and I said in the season preview, it was not like 2015, but everybody called me crazy. But this year was just so special because so much weird stuff happened and so much magical stuff happened. And the fans, just the attachment to this team and the nights where there weren't as many people in the ballpark as we'd want to see, but the people who were here were loud and who cared. It was a season where really, if you followed this team all year and you stuck through, I don't think there's a high that you could feel like this year. And Carlos Mendoza deserves Manager of the Year. I don't care about anybody else. What I care about is a guy who, in his first year, saw his team go 0-5 and still turned it around. And then saw one of the worst months in franchise history in May, still turn it around, 11 games under, take them to the playoffs. And yeah, John said the coaching staff incredible. Jeremy Hefner, John Gibbons, Antoine Richardson, Eric Chavez.
Jeremy Barnes.
Colin
Hetzler working with the guys at AAA. Dick Scott.
Brett.
Everyone.
Everybody on this team. But I also want to give a shout out to some people who don't get credit. I want to give a shout out to Will Carafello, who runs the social media, who those games where you guys are mad at the Mets and don't feel good. Imagine having to get on the Twitter and try to figure out what you're going to write that night. Hunter, Jess, Kayla, Bobby, Andy, Brendan, Trisha, everybody. There's so many people. The people in baseball lives, Jared Faust, Tim Wise, watching the game with them today. Brielle, Okiko, who works in broadcast. So I found out tonight has been a diehard Mets fan her entire life. And I was just having a ball sitting next to her and watching. Somebody I've worked with for 2 years and I had no idea loved the Mets as much as me. There's people here. There's people here where this isn't just a job.
I'm speechless. For us to be able to cap this incredible.
I didn't say Hunter. I think I said Hunter, but I'm not sure. But I want to give a shout out. John, I'm so sad Hunter's not sitting here tonight.
I know. For us to be Ty. For us to be able to cap this incredible ride, and I said it again, no matter how it ended, it's been awesome. But I knew when I said that, if there wasn't a playoff appearance, that unfortunately a lot of people who like to harp on misery would say, oh, well, it doesn't matter. They didn't make the playoffs.
It's culture.
To stamp it with a playoff appearance, and that's just the beginning, and I truly believe that.
The team's only made the playoffs 11 times in their franchise history.
This season is one of the most special seasons in the history of this franchise. And While we now look at playoff matchup with the Milwaukee Brewers, and we all know that the Milwaukee Brewers have given the Mets a lot of trouble in recent years, going back, quite a while.
So do the Braves.
So do the Braves. And especially to do what they did in that house of horrors, there's something different about this team. And I feel like that cues you up now to ask the question of the episode.
The question of the episode is, are the 2024 Mets a team of destiny? And this is a moment where we're just going to quickly go over some of the moments that make you beg the question. Is this a special team? Is this the team that those fans, those Rays fans, okay, those Red Sox fans, those Marlins fans, those fans who watch their teams get eliminated, who have nobody to root for right now, is this the team they're going to start to look at and go, why not them? Teams like the Diamondbacks last year that everybody kind of rallied around and said, hey, you know what? It would be cool to see the Diamondbacks win. It all starts with, where does it all start? Like, what do you think the first moment, I guess, is that game where they were about to get no hit against the Tigers, the 0-5, Gary Cohen, 0-5, barely anybody in the ballpark, hitless through 7. Is this rock bottom? Is that the moment?
I think that there's been countless of those examples where this team could have easily packed it in and folded it up and didn't. That game, the Blue Jay game I mentioned on September 11th, game 1 on Monday afternoon where the Mets are down 3-0 and they could have easily been like, hey, let's play for game 2.
Grimace.
I want to also talk about what Edwin Diaz did on Monday in game 1, where it came out after the game that he had thrown a lot of pitches in his first appearance in the 8th inning after throwing 14 pitches on Sunday. And we all thought Ryan Stanek was coming in. And Edwin Diaz apparently told Carlos Mendoza, nope, it's my game.
Well,
and
apparently
then
he was told by Jeremy Hefner his night was done, and then he went up to he went up to Carlos Mendoza and said, I'm not done.
And then he gives up the hit, and Mendy goes out there, and we all thought he was being pulled. And once again, and it's been a theme all year, we saw Mendy go out there, and he talks, and he lets his guy talk him in, staying in the game because he trusts his guys and he trusts his players, and this team trusts each other. And in October, we know that every 90 feet matters, defense matters, and resolve matters. And being able to pick yourself up off the mat when things are looking tough, and that's what this team is all about. And that's why this team's going to the postseason, baby. That's why.
Like, I just, the amount of things that have happened this season, the selfie, the rally rat and raccoon, that game where me and John, Edwin Diaz gives up a grand slam to Corbin Carroll, and you're like,
how many times have the Mets been done?
When John and I are in Lehigh Valley to interview Brandon Sproat, somebody we've been dying to talk to all year, but we have the Diamondbacks game off in the background, and we're just trying to pay attention.
And who threw that 2-ball?
David Peterson.
Shout out our guy, David Peterson.
Johan or John Maine? Which one?
Dude, David Peterson. 1 hit,
Which game?
7
Johan
innings.
game or Johan? Johan game or John Maine game? Which one?
Johan. I feel like it's Johan. David Peterson was a godsend for this team. The Mets are so lucky to have him moving forward. David Peterson, you are the guy. You are the guy.
This season is just...
It's too much to digest right now.
The ball off third base bag, the ball off the third base bag against the Phillies, and then the ball off the third base bag yesterday.
We are just... Look, we're lucky, and I want to thank all the... I know we've done it before, but...
No, we should, because like we've made some friends this year, which is cool. Like Jordan Simpson sat in here twice for us. Chris Russo, C Money, who was big behind hey, bring back the network thing, and something that all these fans asked for. This year has been the year. This year has been the year of fan involvement.
Baseball is a crazy game. It's oftentimes a coin flip. We all know that. You go into a must-win game. We have 9 innings. You never know. The Mets are down 3-0 in the 7th inning against the Braves in Atlanta. You're expecting the worst, and all of a sudden, bang, 6 runs. Oh, my God. And then they give it all back, and you're like, we're screwed. And then once again, the Mets bounce back. They fight back. This team has something very special and very different. And I love the fact that the Mets are going to go on the road as an underdog probably and going to Milwaukee, a team that we all know, and they all know too, hasn't been a lot of fun there at American Life Field over the years. This team saw the Brewers. They know what to expect.
I want to say something. We're going to do a preview.
We are.
We're going to do a preview. John spoke to
Jeff Levering, play-by-play guy for the Brewers on TV.
And we're going to release that also. So that might even come out the same day today. Who knows? It will have to come out the same day today. But we're going to talk more about that. But I want to point out that as bad as that, you know how a team can look good on paper? I think the Mets looked a lot worse on paper than they let off. Friday night, all you Mets fans know the truth. That was a weird game with some wacky calls. We're not going to get into it. There was some malarkey going on in that game. Then Saturday, Mets are down 2 runs for most of that game.
By the way, Jose Quintana threw a great game. 9 strikeouts, season high.
Also, some people went on the YouTube and commented some things about Jose, and I would never normally acknowledge this, but if you went on our Instagram or our YouTube to insult Jose Quintana, you don't know what you're talking about. I am sorry. Jose Quintana pitched a beautiful game. He gave everything he possibly could.
He's been fantastic. Mets starting pitching. We talked to Jeremy Hefner. Jeremy Hefner has been a godsend, especially this season with the rotation the way it's been. This team said it after the Philly game. I'm going to say it again. And I hope it doesn't come back to bite me, but I don't think it's going to. No one wants to see the New York Mets right now. No one wants this New York Mets team.
Because if you're nervous right now because you're like, oh, well, this was a rough week. They barely won.
I think this New York Mets team has house money to play with in a way. And
that's what they said.
And that's a dangerous team that you don't want to run into, because if things come back here to Citi Field in Queens on October 8th, time to play the game. It's time to play the game.
I didn't expect that. But I'm glad you said that, because I want to point out that's what JD Martinez said to the press right after that meeting. He said, this isn't a team anybody.
Guess what we're about to be addicted to?
The postseason.
Playoff baseball.
But JD Martinez said nobody expects us to win 100 games, so why not go out there and just, play every game, play every inning, which it's funny because 89 games, 88 games isn't that far off from 100 games. So 89. And John, who said the magic number was 89 a few weeks ago?
They finished with 89 wins.
I literally turned to Jeff Baker from our partnership team, because he listens to the podcast. He came up to me after we switched from 87 to 89. He said, I thought it was 87. The second the Mets won, he looked over at me and I went,
89.
89. Last 2 years, Philadelphia Phillies and the Arizona Diamondbacks. You know what they did? They lost their way into the postseason, basically.
The Mets didn't lose their way into the postseason.
No, but you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
No, I know.
You know what I'm saying? I'm saying they had a rough final stretch.
We've seen in the new format, being idle, not good. Being hot at the right time, good. This Met team, very good.
Anything can happen right now, guys, and that's the point. And we're not going to make any promises. We're not going to say anything. We're going to be here with you every night, by the way. We're doing episodes after every single game. The morning after every single playoff game, we will be right here talking to you, the listener, the fan.
WFAN.
I don't know how long this episode is. I do know we have to start to wrap it up. I could sit here and talk for hours and hours, but...
you guys go enjoy your mornings while you're listening to this, because this is a glorious morning to be a New York Met fan. This team that no one expected to even make the playoffs, even sniff the playoffs. They did it, and they earned it. And you guys who supported this team and our podcast all year long, tip of the cap, I'm wearing a hat, but thank you guys so much for being there every episode, every game coming out. This is the best fan base in all of sports. I know that. We know that. There is something about being a Met fan that is different than any other fandom in all of professional sports. And for us to all get to enjoy a prosperous day like today, where you feel like you're being kicked while you're down, and all of a sudden you rise from the ashes like a phoenix.
Phoenix. And
there's a lot more story to be written.
We thanked coworkers. We thank coaches. I do want to thank some players. Not for you could thank every single player on the roster for their time they gave us this year. But I want to take a moment to thank some players who took time with us that really didn't need to. Jose Quintana is a guy that he didn't even know this. We did a test interview with him, and we didn't even know it was a test. But then we realized after it was very obviously a test. And Jose made the interview so easy and so comfortable that it helped us get this podcast. So I want to thank Jose Quintana for anytime we asked him to do the show this year, he did it. Sean Minaya, another guy. Anytime he was asked to do the podcast, came in this room and did it. Harrison Bader. We did that episode with Harrison Bader and Pete Alonso. Harrison Bader is the guy that made that happen. Like, Harrison Bader was incredible to us in the start of the year, and he was a guy who was not on this team before this, who just, luckily took a liking to us and helped us.
Tyrone Taylor.
Tyrone Taylor for on-field performance, but also Tyrone Taylor for doing the podcast multiple times. Mark Vientos did the podcast a bunch of times. Edwin Diaz came on last week when fans were not, like...
he was about to go strike out Bryce Harper. He got a 4-out save that day.
Edwin Diaz did the podcast when fans were not happy with him. And
he started his day by talking to us, and then he got a 4-out, and the next day he got a 6-out save.
And what's crazy about that is, like, we asked for Edwin, and we were like, we'll ask for Edwin, but, he's got to focus. Like, things are tough right now.
He literally came to the ballpark in his street clothes, and he came in here and talked to us.
It's just crazy because he didn't have to do, like, that's the point I'm making. He didn't have to do this show.
This is a great team, guys. This is a great team.
Jose Iglesias not only did the show mulch, been nothing but nice to us, talks to us, like, is a great guy. Thank you to Jose Iglesias. David Peterson, everybody who did the show. I mean, every single guy in the roster. Francisco Lindor did the show twice.
Thank you, Tommy, also for hooking it up.
Tommy, Donovan, thank you. Bobby, thank you. Dave, thank you. Jake in the beginning of the season was going and shepherding people over. It's been a really good year, and I'm glad that we're doing more episodes.
And we're not done, guys. So thank you, most importantly, to all the listeners, whether new or old or from the beginning or trying us out for the first time. We know there's a ton of Mets podcasts. We know that. We think that we give a different perspective, a different look.
Who was telling you the season wasn't over in May? Who else?
That's right. Glass Half Full podcast. And guess what? This glass is overflowing with enjoyment right now.
I'm so hyped up right now. I'm not going to be able to sleep. I couldn't sleep last night for other reasons. I'm not going to be able to sleep I'm so happy.
Let's go, Mets.
Let's go, Mets.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching.
Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Vito F. Khaleesi. He's at JMB9191. We're on Apple and Spotify at Meet at the Apple every morning after the playoffs.
Mets.
Every morning after the playoffs. Mets. John, they can't hear me after every morning after every playoff game. You're going to hear this damn podcast right here. Let's go, Mets!
Let's go, Mets!